Welcome everyone to Davos Fingers, episode 3, Two Roads Diverged in a Wolfswood. We've got the usual suspects here tonight, Scott, myself. We have Brooke, and we have Matt with us as well, as usual. And we'll be covering, this week, we'll be covering Jon's second chapter, Dany's second chapter, Eddard's second chapter, Tyrion's second chapter, Catelyn's third chapter, and then at the end, if we've got some time, we'll get into some Davos After Dark to spoil some things for those that want to stick around. And so what we'll be doing is our normal format. We'll be covering the summaries of chapters very briefly at the top, and then we'll dive into some analysis of that chapter, some fun discussion points, and then we'll move on to the next chapter and do the same until we get through the end. So. Wanted to take an opportunity really quick just to allow you to encourage you to contact us, to provide feedback or ask us questions, encourage us to discuss any given topics that you have interest in that maybe you'd like to hear us talk about. You can reach out to us through our Tumblr site, which is davosfingers.tumblr.com. You can email us at wearedavosfingers@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at davosfingers. And also want to remind people, this may be your first listen. This is a spoiler-free show, so we will try to keep everything spoilerific away until we get to the end segment called Davos After Dark. So hopefully we won't be spoiling anything for anybody. So keep it open that way. And I think we wanted to start tonight off actually with a piece of news that Matt read regarding the Song of Ice and Fire series. Matt, go ahead.
So, get this. The Office for National Statistics named the most popular baby names in the UK for 2013. You ready for this?
I don't know.
There were 187 baby girls named Arya last year.
Wow.
Another 50 named Khaleesi.
Wow.
Yes!
Yeah, I kid you not. 7 boys named Bran, and
only 7?
Only 7.
Huh.
And 3, get this, 3 Sandors.
Wow.
As in Sandor Clegane.
Tyrion didn't make the cut? What's the deal?
Not that I've got here.
Wow.
So, I just thought that was a lot of fun.
Well, so. I was I think we mentioned this before, but we just recently had a baby boy brought into our family, but had it been a girl, I was pushing the wife for Arya really hard, and she was not having it. But
what?
I love the name.
That's it. Really groundbreaking stuff that is really worthy of our attention. So
absolutely,
totally worthy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I love that Khaleesi is going to be like.
Oh, don't worry.
My diner server's name in 20 years.
In 20 years.
I love it.
And don't worry, that's the same number of people
really
who
pigeonhole the audience of these books.
Don't worry, guys. That was the same number of people named Peggy last year.
Wow.
Just so you know.
Ugh.
They could
50 Peggies, 50 Khaleesi's.
Couldn't have just gone with Dany, I guess.
No. Or Peggy.
So let's go ahead and just get kicked off then with Jon's second chapter. Brooke, I think you're going to be taking us through this one.
Yes. So this chapter is dedicated to Jon's farewells as he takes the fork north in the Wolfswood. A little allude to our episode title. Please, everybody, make note of how clever Scott is.
I'm dying to know how clever I
am. He is joining the Night's Watch up on the wall that divides the North from the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. The Wilds from the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. He is headed up there with his uncle, who is a sort of a high officer within the Night's Watch. And yeah, he's got to say goodbye to all of his family, some who are staying in Winterfell and some who are headed south with Ned while he takes over the position of the King's Hand. So again, this chapter dedicated to Jon just saying goodbye to some people. One farewell goes really well. One is kind of like emotionally stunted, and one goes not so great at all. One might even say it goes life-changingly traumatic. Basically, 2 weeks have passed since Jaime Lannister tossed Bran from the tower at Winterfell, and Jon Snow has not been able to visit his brother at his bedside, where his brother lies unconscious, even once, because Catelyn, Bran's mother, and of absolutely no relation to Jon, as we were reminded on a page-by-page basis, hasn't actually left Bran's bedside. So Jon has not felt comfortable going to visit Bran. That's how just terrible his relationship is with Catelyn. So he's about to leave. He finally bucks up his courage, and when he does finally go up to say goodbye to Bran, him and Catelyn get into it a bit. She doesn't want him in the room at all. Just kind of drags him on her emotional roller coaster and takes them both off the rails at one point by declaring that it should have been Jon instead of Bran who should be in the bed beside her dying. So Jon, to his credit, doesn't like OMG at her or anything. He just kind of turns and leaves because the maturity of this kid is staggering. And he's off to his next farewell. He finds his half-brother Robb in the courtyard. Robb is encouraging him to get going because his uncle is waiting, and everybody wants to be off, had wanted to be off hours ago, and they do a little backslappy goodbye. Bye Stark, bye Snow. They call each other by their last names. It's super, again, stunted, but no hard feelings, and obviously they have a strong sort of bro or bruh, B-R-U-H kind of relationship. Last person that Robb wants to say goodbye to is his half-sister Arya, of the great namesake. He ends up gifting her before he leaves, with a sword. It's a small sword built for like a rapier than a big machete type sword. Yeah. This is how it's been described to us. So perfect for a young girl who's just training up. They have a cute little farewell, and before he leaves, she asks him what the name of the sword is, and he tells her Needle, and she asks why, and it's because it could be for her sewing or needlework, which is an allude to past chapters where she has not found a lot of talent in needlework, but would really love to train with a sword. So it's super cute, it's super endearing, and it really shows how strong their relationship is. And it kind of leaves you on a high note, especially after Catelyn just totally brought him down with the, hey, it should be you dying, not my son here. So that's really great and really promising for Jon, and off he goes to the wall. And that is the Jon chapter.
Yeah, lots to talk about in this chapter. It's one of the we've talked before about, you know, how George has different kinds of chapters that accomplish different things. This is all pretty much a character building chapter. You don't learn a ton about the histories or you know the world itself, but you learn a lot about the relationships that Jon has with his family. Interesting to note too. We don't get goodbyes to Sansa or Rickon. Don't know what.
No.
Maybe it's not interesting. I don't know. I find it interesting. But I think maybe we should focus first on Catelyn and that whole situation. How horrible she is to Jon.
Oh my gosh. What a witch, man.
I mean, the kind of behavior that, as a reader, it's difficult to forgive, I think. You know, and she's in a very difficult spot, she's been sitting with Bran by his bedside, but she's really kind of, it seems like she's just taking it out on Jon with this crazy shit. I mean, it should have been you in the bed? What does that even mean? I don't climb towers. Like, I don't... What?
Yeah, it was totally unnecessary. Like, totally unnecessary.
Yeah. Obviously, 2 weeks of grief have really, magnified her resentments, whether rational or irrational for Jon, and it just all kind of exploded. And again, I have to give so much credit to him for not... rising to it, because I totally would have. I'm heading up to the wall. This is my last chance to give her to the old witch, but he didn't. He just
and it's what has he ever done to her besides be born?
Yeah. You
How dare he?
Yeah.
how dare he?
Catelyn's so put together all the time, and that's why this chapter was so interesting. She's always so, this is the same woman that deciphered that note from Liza Aaron, right? She she she's smarter than this, basically. She's better than this, and so we're starting to see this other side of Cat, which is a fascinating part of the story, and I think maybe our first real introduction into George R. R. Martin's flawed characters, and not so much flawed, but just human characters, I think we'd call them. This is one of the best examples we've gotten so far of someone who, yeah, is really put together, but boy, you do something to her kids, and it's going to mess with her a little bit.
Yeah.
I can't help but think if she would have just, and I can't put myself in her shoes, but if she would have maybe just kept herself busy, or at least tried to, instead of just sitting by his bedside for 2 whole weeks, she might have been a little bit calmer. But I don't know. I've never had a kid fall out of a window.
No, not a kid, but you've certainly experienced some things, even somewhat recently, that have, caused you to have to focus on, on day-to-day stuff while dealing with some, some things in your life. And I think you're right. If you shut everything out but this one thing, you're not going to cope very well. And I think, Brooke, you said it well too. That it's, I think you said magnifies. It just makes stronger these things that she's already feeling. And I want to go into that a little bit. I mean, it's for anyone looking on, it seems so irrational, but it's a pretty common thing for people to be able to be unable to separate people from infractions, right? You associate somebody with something, and then forever you cannot get over that boundary. And for John, Catelyn associates him with this affair on Ned's side, right? And he had nothing to do with it. He wasn't involved, right? And yet he's suffering all this punishment and blame from her because she can't pull that out and say, you know what, I hate this situation, but he's not the one that caused it, right?
Right.
And you see that in the real world with the worst case that I remember reading about was like women that have been raped, right? And then they get pregnant from that rape, and they have this child that they associate with that event, and that one's obviously much more strong. When they have a lot of real trouble, distancing the event from this child that had nothing to do with the event, right? And that's just again getting back to the realism of George and his characters and how human they are. I think this is kind of an example of that.
Holy crap, this just got political. Damn, Scatty.
Sorry.
No, I'm impressed. It is extreme, and he isn't afraid to go there, and he never lets up. Because obviously as a reader, we sympathize with John in this case because he has the rational hand in this game with Catelyn, and he never eases up. She stays crazy right to the last time she sees him walking out the door, which is impressive and has to be hard for him too, to give a character he obviously reveres because he's endowed her with so many strong qualities, and like keep her being so crazy. I hate keep distilling it down to that word, but really that's what she's being. You're analyzing it much better, Scat. She's crazy.
Yeah.
She's acting crazy.
No, yeah, she is.
He really just takes it all the way, and they don't have to reconcile because he's not afraid to leave these loose ends. It's good. It makes for more interesting reading for sure.
Do you think we would feel differently about Catelyn if this chapter was from her point of view instead of John's? Probably not a lot, but I don't know. Just something to think about.
I don't think so.
I've been thinking a lot lately about how the point of views of the different characters influence the way that we feel about them and about the situations. And I wonder how we'd feel if this was all coming from Catelyn. I certainly don't think I'd like her, but...
Well, the only real rumination Catelyn has given us from her point of view about John is her regret that he resembles Ned so much that he is like a daily reminder. We never really get internal monologue about her being like, "Oh, John, I wish he'd die. I wish he'd, fall off a roof." Blah blah blah. It's always from someone else's point of view that we get her vitriol. The only point of view we've had from her, I believe, is in the Godswood, her first chapter, where she just regrets that. Well, she does question his heritage, but mostly she just regrets that he is such a living reminder.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know that there's much room for a different interpretation, given that. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about rumination, perhaps she could lend some historical, what it reminds her of when he walks in the room, or something like that. We might feel a little bit for her, but the things she says,
Right.
they're pretty inexcusable, regardless of whose POV it's coming from.
And yeah, and regardless of POV, the things that come out of their mouths are going to be the same.
Yes, right.
It's more of getting that background thought. I'm not defending her by any stretch of the imagination. I just
Good,
think it's
Matt.
interesting to think about how that point of view idea works throughout the book.
Because if you defend someone that's attacking Jon, Brooke is liable to stomp off.
That's right. I'm just going to throw my headset down, flip this table, and take off. But no, like to your question, now this is like opening up my eyes too. He really is manipulating us with these various points of conflict and from whose perspective we see them at. Because you're totally right. He is playing us. Matt, oh, good discovery, man. Yeah.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it when we get to Dany's chapter 2.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you imagine that scene from Drogo's perspective? Anyway, we'll get to that.
Actually, yeah, I can walk into any nightclub right now. Okay, go.
Well, I want to get to the other two main exchanges that happen here. I think Jon and Rob's could be short. I mean, they're brothers, they're close, but I think Brooke mentioned in her summary that it's a strangely formal departure, right? A little hug, a little using the last names. Jon lies to Rob in his last encounter, saying that the exchange with Catelyn was good. We see incredibly emotional responses from Jon with Bran, saying he's got to wake up and all that, and with Arya later in the chapter. And this is very cold, and yet I at least figured them to be the closest of his siblings in the lead up to this chapter.
Did you guys see? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I disagree with you, Scad.
You make it so difficult sometimes.
I do, I really do.
In which way?
I just think that it's kind of that, as Brooke called it, the bruh mentality. I think they're more buddies than they are friends. Or, excuse me, buddies than they are brothers. And I think that maybe comes from just their closeness in age. But, at least for me, I talk to my friends differently than I talk to my little brothers and sisters. And I always have, even through high school and all of that. And you're kind of a little bit more bro-y with them. Dude, everything's cool, no worries, in regards to Catelyn. And you call your friends by their last names sometimes. I still call one of my friends Miller instead of by his first name. I just think it's kind of just a different relationship, more of a friend-buddy relationship than a brother relationship. I didn't find it too formal or cold. Just found it different.
I would not have used cold, but definitely formal. And I don't know. I'm leaving. I guess he doesn't think that he's never going to see him again, because they do talk about the next time that he'll see him, but not going to see him for a long time. And it's I
do think it's interesting using the last names and what they imply.
Yeah.
Snow meaning bastard and Stark meaning top dog in the north. I don't think they meant that in that way, but it sends a message.
Yeah.
I thought it was really telling of the relationship that when Rob asked about how it went up in Bran's room with Catelyn, Jon said it was fine. Mm-hmm. Didn't allude to the fact that Catelyn had been just so terrible to him. In fact, that whole exchange kind of reminds me of the first Captain America movie, which I loved. Have you guys seen The Winter Soldier yet?
No, that was the second one.
I know, but I'm just
No, I
totally
haven't seen it.
yeah, I'm totally sidebarring here, but excellent movie. In the first Captain America, though, Steve Rogers and Bucky end up departing in the same way that Rob and John have kind of a backslap, hey, take it easy. One is going off to war, one is being left behind in New York. But then the whole plot of the next two movies is just about how much they love each other and how
Right.
far they'd be willing to go to save slash avenge each other. So I don't think that they need to be super open with their affection to each other. They know deep inside that they would sacrifice a lot.
Perfectly articulated. Perfectly. I think with a lot of time, guys are kind of that way. They leave a lot of things unspoken. Deep down, they're feeling it.
Not every dude expresses themselves as well as you two do.
Oh dear. If you only knew.
Well, I had one of those moments when I said goodbye to my best friend in high school. A girl who was also a very good friend of ours was in the back seat when I dropped him off for the last time or whatever when we were both going to go our separate ways for college, and we had very much one of these moments. So I definitely know what you're talking about.
Aw, that's really cute.
It was adorable. Our
I'll
friend in the
bet.
back seat started crying.
Oh, how could
Can't you go
not?
get? She said, I believe her exact words were, "Can't you go give him a hug?" Or something. And I'm like, and I just shook my head. I'm like, no, it's not that way, or something. So,
Yeah, but don't worry.
But-
there were teardrops on his guitar when he got home that night.
He's the reason for the teardrops on my guitar.
but he was not my brother, and so that's why I draw the distinction here.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the closeness in age that it seems like more of a buddy relationship than a brother relationship or
Yeah.
what, but because they are, the same age pretty much.
Well, I want to move on from this, but I do want to just, before we move on from the discussion with Rob, I want to just drop in an observation I had. One of the lines, I just think it's brilliant writing from George. Rob says to John, "The next time I see you, you'll be in black." And John just replies, "It was always my color." Which is, it could be, as Brooke said last week, her wardrobe is mostly black. It could just be a comment like that, right? Like, oh, I always liked black, But it also could be something, just much heavier, like, I was destined to do this, right? It was always, the black was always for me, right? That this was always where I was going to end up because I'm a bastard or because, I don't know. But I think it's a brilliant piece of writing that I wanted to highlight.
Mm-hmm.
It is good.
So the last goodbye is with Arya. It just highlights their relationship, and I don't know where their relationship comes from. I think they're both kind of outcasts. We talked about this a little bit in Arya's last chapter, but they're united a little bit in some things that they have in common. You want to talk a little bit about that, Brooke?
Yeah, so I think I went on ad nauseum in the last time, but both outcasts, both look like Starks. Arya has always felt like Jon is her full-blood brother and has treated him thusly. So that probably solidified their relationship. Whatever the case, it didn't feel like they were desperate to see each other again in the future. It felt like a good, strong goodbye. Like they both had faith that the other one would survive and do well in their respective adventures. And it's just a happy little piece of writing. Arya gets her sword. Kind of feels like the beginning of a path that is going to be really interesting to watch her walk. Whether you know what's going to happen or not, she is an interesting character who gets a point of view, and a strong woman character. So
yeah, I like too that he gives her the sword, almost like a like a last encouragement. Like, don't forget who you are. Like, yeah, you're leaving here. You're going to go to court with all these fancy pants people, and they're going to try to make you be whatever. But here's this friggin' sword, and you go figure out how to use it, and you be yourself. And it's just kind of like a little encouragement from Brother John to, to be who she is. I liked that.
Mm-hmm.
For a guy who's already, as you just pointed out, his conversation with Rob, he's accepted who he is kind of destined to be. which may not be exactly what he wants to be, but he feels like because of his station in life that that's where he's going no matter what. It's encouraging and kind of cute and heartwarming is the word I'm looking for, to see him encouraging someone like Arya, who's got her whole future ahead of her, to go off and do what she actually wants rather than what she feels like she has to do, like he's doing with the wall.
Yeah.
Oh, good way to sum it up. There we go. Don't ask me to speak next time. Just ask Matt to explain it.
Oh, you guys have done great.
So we'll move on to Danny in a second, but again, just a great kind of ending about when Jon says to Arya about the two roads, different roads leading to the same castle. They're going different directions physically, maybe emotionally, and this is a nice line that George has thrown in. Sometimes writers throw these things in and they don't mean anything by them, but sometimes they throw them in as a hint of things to come, right? Like, oh, maybe they're going to end up being in more similar circumstances than you think, right? Even though they're departing and heading in different directions now.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to throw that in as a possible teaser. Who knows?
I like it.
All right, Matt, why don't we move on to Danny's second chapter?
Why don't we? So we've got Daenerys, and we open the chapter on her wedding feast. She's been married at the tender young age of 13, a fact that I try not to think about too much as I'm going through chapters like this one, that she's only 13 years old. Of course, we don't know how old Khal Drogo is, right? He seems older, but for all we know, he could be like 17 or 18. I don't know. So they got married, and at this point they are eating dinner and getting gifts, and they're getting all sorts of cool stuff. Danny gets, among other things, some really cool history books about Westeros from Ser Jorah Mormont, who was a sellsword from Westeros who ended up joining up with Daenerys and Viserys and pledged his sword to protect them. And they get some stuff from him. She gets some new stuff from her blood riders, who are members of Khal Drogo's entourage, who are kind of going to be her primary protectors. She gets some dragon eggs, or purported dragon eggs, from Illyrio, who talks about how they're petrified at this point and everything, but she's stunned by how lovely they are and how heavy they are. I thought that was interesting, that they're heavy and petrified, almost like rock at this point. And then her sweet, loving, tender husband gives her a beautiful horse, which she's able to hop on and ride around, and she impresses everybody. And I thought it was interesting to note that after she rode the horse, we actually saw Khal Drogo smile for the first time, and that was kind of a cute moment. Then, of course, you get some, the typical Dothraki wedding apparently is filled with all sorts of out there and under the sun sex and fighting and all sorts of great stuff going on right in front of everybody, which kind of throws her for a little bit of a loop. In fact, Illyrio states to her, a Dothraki wedding without at least 3 deaths is deemed a dull affair. And she said that their wedding must have been especially blessed because before the day was over, 12 men had died. So it's obviously going well as far as Dothraki weddings go. The wedding festivities died down. Khal Drogo and Danny ride off into the sunset for their first night together, at which we get a vivid description of their wedding night, of I don't know, I guess you'd call it some type of foreplay that's particularly one-sided that eventually does lead to sex. And that's the Danny chapter. All sorts of good stuff. And this is where I kind of get back to that POV point that I tried to make earlier, and how it influences how we see the characters. Getting it from Danny's point of view, we see her as she sees herself. But it's interesting and sometimes a bit of a challenge for us to try to step outside of the POV character and see them from another perspective rather than their own. If we just took Danny for how she thought of herself, she'd be this scared to death little girl. But if you just step outside that for a minute, what does she look like? I mean, this girl who's Is she getting the wedding of her dreams? I don't think so. This is going is probably the complete opposite direction of how she pictured her life going. And what do you guys think? What would you see it from an outsider's perspective of how Dany is?
I don't know whether this answers the question or not, but what you get in this chapter is all these things she's feeling, and so I don't know if you guys have heard the phrase. I get it all the time because I think it's true of myself in some ways. I'm my own worst critic. So she's feeling all these things and she feels terrible and she thinks it must be showing to everybody, but everybody else probably doesn't see all that. She sounds like she's keeping composed. She's sitting there looking straight ahead. She's, there.
Exactly.
She can't engage, but I think everybody else probably sees somebody who looks like maybe she has it together, right?
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Yep.
Yeah, totally agreed. I love how her brother Viserys uses their heritage as the Dragon Lords as sort of like an entitlement. He says, "Don't wake the dragon." He thinks that he should regain the throne just by his birth alone, but she uses her heritage for
Inner
strength. Yeah, she says, "I am the blood of the dragon." That's what she keeps telling herself as she's like got a rictus of a grin while people are humping and dying in front of her during this wedding feast, which I
That's
love.
what we should have called the episode.
Humping and dying at the wedding feast.
By the way, dream wedding.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I think it's lends her a lot of substance. She's not expecting anything. She has to find all of her strength from within, and she does. And even though she is a young girl and hasn't had a lot of great influences in her life, but I just want to get back to Matt's comment at the end of his chapter description of one-sided foreplay. I don't think that's what that was. I think Khal Drogo, at least from Dany's perspective,
that was a rather crass way of putting it. Yeah, that was a rather...
Well, it might just be an observation, but it's completely incorrect. So let me correct you.
Educate us, Brooke. What's incorrect?
Khal Drogo obviously is quite sensitive in his own way. He is the product of his upbringing, just as so many characters in this series are, and you have to kind of excuse his I'm making air quotes here, barbaric ways, but when it comes to deflowering his new wife, he does it right.
Yeah.
Gets her all warmed up.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
I mean,
it wasn't like he was looking for reciprocation. He was completely focused in on making sure it was a good experience for her, which was completely unexpected, and I think for a lot of readers has probably endeared him to them.
Yes.
And certainly I don't want to dive into the TV show, but they did a great job with his character there and making him a very attractive savage.
Whoa. Is Brooke saying something positive about the TV series? It's happening.
Only because I was a big Stargate Atlantis fan, like big enough to attend the San Diego Comic-Con just for the Stargate Atlantis panel back in the day.
Wow.
So this is kind of like a holdover.
Khal Drogo's no question. He was saying no throughout the night, and his final no, which was posed in the form of a question, actually elicited an "ah" from me.
Yes, absolutely.
So
he's this big,
being
strong guy in control of all these people, and in command of his faculties and everything. And he's unconfident enough that he's not sure of himself after warming up, revving up the oven for hours. He's not sure of himself whether he's done a good enough job, and he's sensitive and asking, right?
I think I thought that was very sensitive of him, and I thought that was very selfless of him.
Mm-hmm. So the lines of consent were blurred from like the moment she was sold into this marriage right up until he rode off with her into a deserted field to do the deed. but he brought it back around by making sure she was good.
Well, it showed
Totally
too
did.
some forethought. I think what this whole scene means is that he looked at it from her perspective. He looked at it and said, "She probably thinks this is fucking crazy. She's being sold to me. There's no rules. She doesn't know what I'm gonna do. Like, she's got to be really insecure right now." And he took the time to look at it from her perspective, treat her this way in order to get over that hump, and so that she can see that what his intentions are and what kind of person he really is and how this is gonna be, and you're not a rape post. Like
Rape post, Jesus.
sorry.
Brooke is just appalled by
is that
Scott
too
and I
much?
right now.
But I have to say I think Matt was saying that maybe it was Brooke, I don't know, one of you said that this took a lot of readers by surprise, and it definitely took me by surprise. I was not ready for this to come out the way it did, and I was happy for both of them, because they've both taken this extremely kind of awkward situation and made what appears to be the beginnings of a healthy relationship. Right?
It was
One of
beautiful. It
consent
was a
and
beautiful
care.
moment. Yeah. We got little clues of Khal Drogo throughout the chapter, and I really liked them. I really liked the part about him smiling after she rode the horse around. At first, he gives her this beautiful horse, and you might think to yourself, why is he giving her this beautiful horse? Well, it could just be because he's the Khal. It's like when the famous basketball player decks his wife out and all the beautiful stuff and allows her to go shopping and buys her a big nice car and all of that because she's his wife, and so she needs to look good too. So on the surface, you might think that's what Khal Drogo's doing. He wants his wife to look good, so he gives her a beautiful horse. But the fact that, she rode around and jumped over the fire and everything, and it elicited a little smile to him. I don't know, but to me that makes me think that he wants Dany to enjoy a certain amount of freedom. And he cares about kind of her well-being and stuff, and kind of wants her to still maintain a sense of herself. And then, the no question at the end, just little things like that you pick up about Khal Drogo that kind of makes him let his guard down to us a little bit, that I think are really cool.
That's well said, Matt. I think maybe a little bit too. It was also let's see what you do with this. I don't know you. I'm gonna give you this. I hope that you can, seize it and be free and experience life with me and be the kind of partner that I really want. Can you? Let's see. Show me what you do with this powerful, brilliant animal, right?
Awesome. Love it.
And she just, to her credit, summoning the dragon within, she just owns it, right? And in doing so, not only maybe makes him smile, that he's given her the wind, and she knows that and gets it and accepts it and understands it, makes him smile. She has won over 40,000 people in the matter of 15 secones.
This is our queen.
They are hers from that moment. The moment she jumps over that fire, and what great imagery that is. They're her. They're in her back pocket. They love her from that moment on. This is our queen. She is awesome.
Great point.
Yep. I would maybe be careful not to credit Khal Drogo with giving her too much agency, because I think he still probably considers her property, but at least he's treating that property well, which again is all we can ask for in this situation.
Yeah, it's a product of his upbringing, like you said so well.
Yeah. Oh man, we made it through talking about the sex scene. Whew.
We did.
Are you feeling pretty tittillated right now, Brooke? You didn't
No,
giggle.
just
You
nervous.
didn't giggle once.
That's not what I was worried about.
Now I'm really curious.
We did pretty good.
We did do good. It's like talking about sex with my brothers. It's only funny on the highest, most surface level. Like, oh, you got that girl's phone number? Great. I don't want to know anything else.
I'm honored that you you compared us to your brothers. Aw.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's taking it to a whole new level. I feel.
All right,
I feel
Thompson.
all
All
warm
right,
inside.
Thacker. Just take it easy.
All
Take
right.
it easy. Let's keep going.
Ooh, the last names.
At least she
Cold
didn't
and
middle name
formal.
us. We better not give her those.
I would die for you.
So should we talk about the gifts a little bit?
Yes.
if you want to, yeah.
Well,
They
I
are
just think
important.
the gifts are interesting because I put this in the notes there that a gift often says more about the giver than it does about the person that's opening it or that's receiving it, and I think it's interesting who's giving her what. The three slaves that are given to her from her brother, are meant to teach her how to speak Dothraki, how to be a better lover, and how to ride a horse. I think.
Yes.
The first two were right. I think the third is correct too.
So they're all. The point is, they're all three things.
Yes,
that
they are.
That are meant to. That are just meant to slide her into that culture to make her husband happy, so he gets what he wants. You better learn these three things because if you don't, I might not get what I need. These are the three things I think you need to know. So here's your slaves to get that. Right? They kind of put her in a very specific role. The dragon's eggs, I don't know what that says, from Illyrio, other than it seems like a surfacey gift. They're pretty, but they don't do anything, right?
They are incredibly valuable, though.
They are valuable. They're valuable to someone that owns a manse.
Yeah, I see them as kind of I'm going to give you this really valuable gift so that when you go back over to Westeros, you remember who I am.
Yeah, it's a status gift for sure.
It's a status gift, but it doesn't have any use in her life.
It doesn't. There's no practical use. It's just nice looking eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one can argue though that Illyrio is not a good gift giver. I mean, that's a talent few are born with. It was great.
Yeah. Few are born with it, but Jorah maybe is one of the few.
Yeah, also great gifts.
Yeah, the history books that, if he sees, we talked a little bit about who sees what in Dany, right? She sees herself as this nervous, insecure person, but Jorah, after meeting her and Viserys, immediately pledges his sword from the last chapter with Dany, and maybe he sees something, in Dany that's like she has potential. She needs to know this history stuff. He could have just kept them and tried to do something else, but I think maybe he sees something in her that she maybe wants knowledge, right?
Right,
and that's interesting.
That's poignant after what Tyrion has already told us about books and learning and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we've already beaten the horse to death that Drogo gave her, so we can move on from that one.
Hey-o.
No puns, thank you.
I don't mean to dumb it down, but Jorah also just didn't have a lot to give. Could that be the reason he gave her the books?
Could be.
I'm just kidding.
He says that.
Well, yeah, obviously
he doesn't have a lot of earthly possessions to begin with, nonetheless ones that would befit a queen. But I thought he did the best with what he had. It was a very thoughtful gift.
Everybody else's gifts were status symbols, but
sure.
His was a very personalized gift for Dany. Shows that he probably has some affection for her already.
Well, he knows that she hasn't been to this home they're trying to win. Mm-hmm. She knows nothing about it. She's never seen it. And
her only teaching on it has come from a brother who's quite bitter and angry and weird.
Yep. All right.
I think we're good with Dany.
Yeah, let's move on.
I'm really excited to talk about this next one. So,
Eddard's chapter?
Yes.
All right, well, let's talk about it. So this chapter opens with Ned being woken up. Bob, Triple B, Robert Baratheon, the king, wants to go for a ride to discuss matters of state. He doesn't want to do it in camp because there are ears everywhere in camp. So they ride and get away from the main party. As they get away from the main party, Robert waxes philosophic about being free again and out in the open air and wanting to leave the camp behind and go off and just be men again together, which is kind of a whimsical thing, but also I think a very deep look into his character as well, as to the kind of man he really wants to be and the kind of things he enjoys and values. Leave the whole group behind and just go out as two men on the road, which is kind of it kind of shows us the kind of things that he values as a man and the things that he enjoys doing. He doesn't like being cooped up in matters of state. He wants to be out there doing things in the sun and hunting and that kind of stuff with friends. But he also brings up John's mother. He's trying to the thing when bros get together and they're like, oh, remember that chick, you got her number, or whatever, they're trying to brag.
Brooks Brothers.
Yeah, Brooks Brothers, right? They bring her into the game sometimes. So he's kind of doing that, but Ned doesn't really play along, right? He's like, I don't really have any stories I want to tell about that. But Ned does give him the name of Jon's mother, Willow, which, as far as we know, he's never told Catelyn that. So he's divulging something here to Robert that Robert either already knew and forgot, or they didn't know before, and that he hasn't told Catelyn. So that's interesting. We get her name. We don't get any other details about her, which is extremely frustrating. But we get her name. Oh, I think we get that she had large breasts. I think Robert mentions that. Other than that, we know nothing else. So, but the main reason they've gone out on this ride is that the Triple B has received a letter from Varys through Jorah Mormont, indicating that the wedding that we just read about in Dany's chapter has taken place.
And, dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So Dany's being informed on by Jorah Mormont. Basically, is what you're led to believe here. And so they go into this whole history about how Robert took the throne, and they stormed after defeating Rhaegar in battle, they stormed King's Landing. They murdered anyone in the royal family that was still around, even young babes. And this is an old wound between Ned and Triple B. They disagree about the way that should have been handled. And this is a main source of conflict between these two best friends, is the way that whole thing went down. You kind of learn that Triple B fears the Dothraki and fears the Targaryen sympathizers within Westeros. That he worries every day about if this is going to come back to bite him, that those kids are still out there that he didn't get to, being Viserys and Daenerys. He also says that he's named Jaime Lannister Warden of the East, and Ned freaks out about that. He doesn't trust Jaime. He doesn't like half the armies being controlled by Lannisters, because the Warden of the West would be Tywin, Jaime's father. The Warden of the East then would be Jaime, and that's basically half of the continent's armies. So that makes him scared. And Bob's really not getting why. Triple B's like, why is this bothering you so much? What's the deal? And Ned he tells him the true story of what he saw when he came to King's Landing, and that being that when he got into the throne room, he marched in, and the Lannisters were everywhere, and Jaime himself was sitting on the Iron Throne, and that he paused there for a while, and they just stared at each other, and eventually he got up, and Triple B just laughs. Just throws his head back and laughs and thinks it's hilarious, and isn't worried about it, and then rides off. And the last thing that we get really is Ned just realizing that he may not be able to reach Robert like he used to could, that maybe beyond his reach. So that's the chapter summary. So let's dive in. So first thing that's maybe interesting is the Camp Full of Ears stuff. Basically, that statement is a nice summary of some of the things he's saying later about he doesn't trust his kingdom. He doesn't think people want him there. He believes that there's a lot of people working actively to get him out, and he's worried about it, and he's concerned kind of at all times. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you guys, do you think, is that the impression you get from him, that he cares a great deal about this?
I don't know that he cares so much. It's just that it gets in the way. It's almost like, this isn't what I signed up for when I was going to be king. I just thought being a king just meant I got to wear the crown. I got to have as many women as I wanted. I got to drink as much as I wanted and just live a life of luxury. And it's almost like this is just kind of annoying. And he's like, this isn't what I signed up for, man. This just sucks.
Yeah, Robert's... Keep going, sorry.
No, I'm done. I was naturally transitioning to you.
God, wow. We're slick. Yeah, he's all about momentum, and you kind of get that from when they're reminiscing about days of old when they were campaigning for the throne. He's all about the chase almost, and now that he has the throne and the kingdom, it is crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also notes somewhere in there that I don't know if he explicitly says it, but he didn't want to be king. What he wanted was revenge, and Lyanna. and what he ended up getting is a
Mm.
crown, right? And he wasn't really prepared for that. I mean, I think, they planned for it right before they revolted. Like, they had to have their plan, and Bob was picked. Triple was picked because the Baratheon family does have a link to the Targaryens, so there is technically some blood relation in there. Robert Baratheon's grandmother was a sister to the king, to a former king, I believe it was Aerys, Aegon the Fifth.
Yeah, she was a Targaryen.
Yeah, she was a Targaryen, and she married into the Baratheon family, gave birth to Steffon Baratheon, who's Robert's father. So it's not that far of a bloodline removal, really. So he's the best blood candidate to be king. But he doesn't really make a very good one, and I don't think he really even wanted it.
Knowing Bobby B, I don't know that he necessarily didn't want it. I kind of get the impression that it's like, well, they're sitting around talking about how this revolt's going to go, and it's like, well, who's going to be king then? Well, Robert's probably the closest. I don't imagine Robert being the type to be like, no, 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 I don't want it.
Yeah,
I can picture him being like, okay, yeah, totally, I'll do it. I don't know if that conversation happened before or after the official revolt, though. That's interesting to think about. They call it Robert's Rebellion, right? And so you think of Robert as kind of the beginner of it, but really, if you look at it, it was Jon Arryn that started the whole thing.
Yes.
At least on the outside, because he's the one that officially said to Aerys, "No, I'm not going to give up Eddard and Robert," and that started the whole rebellion. And then, of course, Robert became the figurehead. It's interesting to think about Jon Arryn's role in all this and how he kind of stepped back and let Robert be the figurehead, and Robert stepped into that role very naturally. It was just the king part that after the fighting part that didn't seem to suit him very well, and did seem to suit Jon Arryn well, as he did about as good a job as you can do being the hand of the king like Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, thankless job. Robert might not be a good king, but he was really good at revenge. Something that really stuck with me was that he had no remorse over the Lannisters killing Rhaegar's, the Mad King Aerys' son, his wife, and 2 children. It gets described really, really
graphically.
Graphically, yeah, even killing a little baby. And Robert's like, good, no more Targaryens.
Yeah.
Get him out of here.
He just calls them dragons, right? He tries to dehumanize them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is all for sending an assassin for Dany now that she's poised to birth some more of them. In earlier chapters, when we heard Viserys muttering about assassins coming after them, we kind of chalked it up to paranoia, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Right. Send a knife and a bold man to wield it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. It's interesting too that a lot of focus is put on the Kingslayer and that nickname, and Jaime killed the king, and well, yeah, but they did worse than that. They killed women and children on this family, right? And I mentioned in the summary that this is a major sticking point for Robert and Ned in their friendship. They got in a huge fight over this and how it was done and how the reaction was that only got better, that they only were able to work through as they together mourned Lyanna's death. And that's that you have those conflicts in your life with friends sometimes where you kind of, it's a big deal, but you kind of just agree to get past it and bury it for a while, but it's always kind of there in the back of your mind, and you both just kind of hope it won't come back up again and you won't have to face it head on. That's what this is. But there's, this letter is forcing them to take it head on again. They have to deal with it again. They can't bury it.
Agreed.
Yes, I know what that's like. Got a couple buried time bombs.
Just waiting,
scattered about my relationships. That's really apt.
Next time I'm in Calgary, Brooke,
you guys are just gonna work it out.
I'm gonna hear these stories. All right. So one of the things too, that just a specific morality question. So, the way Robert looks at it is like, yeah, somebody had to do this. Somebody had to kill these kids. Somebody had to kill the king. We had to take care of the kids. This is the nature of war. And I think that line, I think Robert's way over that line with the kids. But is he right about the king? Is it okay to kill a king that's crazy and doing all sorts of wrong?
Yeah, especially if you're a guy that's sworn to protect him, right?
Yeah.
That adds another wrinkle to it.
Right.
So what's worse, allowing this crazy, insane king who was committing and was going to continue committing all sorts of atrocities on different levels, allow him to live just because you're sworn to protect him? Or is it worse to go against the vow you made and kill one man who would have killed maybe many?
Well, what do you think on that morality question?
I'm totally down with Jaime knifing King Aerys right in the back.
I think I am too. I question the timing. The timing seems all a little too convenient.
I really like Ned's point in that, yeah, it had to happen, but not by someone sworn to protect the king.
Yeah, let somebody else do it.
Yeah, so I think at that point, ethically, even Ned would have done it. And he's like,
he could have whipped out ice.
Top of the moral pyramid.
Although,
and he would have.
Did they go into the timing in this chapter? Was it a previous chapter we read? Like, I think Aerys was just giving an order specifically to his master of Keeper of the Flames. I can't remember the titles. The guy that had all the Horde of Fire to go light the town on fire. Right?
Exactly.
So and that timing was kind of the essence for Jaime, wasn't it?
I think that it was exactly that. That Jaime tried, to do what he could to, I don't know, maybe honor his vows. I don't know if he was trying that hard, but it seemed like he honored them to the bitter end until he realized this guy's going to do something terrible.
Yeah. Well, I want to move on from Eddard in a second here, but I want to touch really quickly on something about naming Jaime Warden of the East. I don't understand how that works, because the Kingsguard take all these vows similar to the Night's Watch. They can't do certain things. They can't hold land anymore. They can't inherit things. They can't get married. They can't do all these sorts of things similar to the Night's Watch. Can Jaime be the Warden of the East and a member of the Kingsguard?
I don't see why not. After you posed that in the notes, I went and looked into it a little bit, and it just reinforced that the title of Warden is purely a military title. It doesn't have anything to do with how many lands you own or what family you're from or anything. It is purely a military title that basically makes you kind of the supreme commander of all of the armies in that region, of which you're the warden. And it just to eliminate confusion, if an invasion does happen of who's going to lead who, you already know the warden's going to lead everyone in the region. In times of peace, it's kind of a status or honorary title. But so I don't see why Jaime couldn't do it, just because it's another military title. But
primarily
is awfully
because he's
convenient.
Not part of the military. So it's a big stretch to me to allow the Kingsguard to go command an army when their job is to protect the king.
Right. In the sense that the Secret Service isn't part of the military.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, I thought it was interesting. I was reading it. I'm just like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
Can they even do that?
And I get the feeling that this is really early on in the series, and maybe he didn't think through all the ramifications or how. No, I'm not spoiling. I'm just saying anybody knows there's 5 huge books in this series, and I don't think George knew everything that could happen and every role that there was to play in every
That's what I was
don't believe
at.
he did. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about spoilers. I was saying, yeah, that's my point.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were hissing at me again.
I think he didn't think through it.
I could also trace it back to just the influence the Lannisters have over Robert, and going back to our previous conversation, if he doesn't want to be troubled by this stuff, he just wants to enjoy the finer living of that comes along with being a king. And so if it'll shut Cersei
Yes.
up for 5 minutes, fine, whatever. We've got peace in the land. We're not going to war anyways, as far as he's concerned. Let freaking Jamie be the friggin' Warden of the East. I don't care as long as you'll shut up and get off my case.
Yeah.
Uh, that's how their relationship is.
I think that's a huge part of it. I agree with you.
Yeah. Plus, in equivalent histories, in like our times, it was up to the military leaders to finance these armies too, and the Lannisters have money, right? So his choices are probably limited by who can weaponize and feed all of the armies of the East
Good point.
or
Russ.
West.
It's an interesting point. That's something that George doesn't ever really go
Yeah,
into.
is that better than just shutting up his wife?
No, but I like it still.
That's something that George doesn't ever really go into, and I'm glad he doesn't, just to be clear, but the logistics of all of this stuff. How armies get from here to there and how long it takes and what provisions and how they're all the financing. Like, I'm glad he stays out of it, but it's something that is missing.
Yeah, but then he just kind of rattles off these extremes, like 100,000 horse warriors
Yes.
storming in out of town, eating everything in sight. They would have to literally eat everything in sight, including the soil and the ground.
Yes.
It's like I don't think
Yeah.
he knows what it takes to feed an army.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that sense too sometimes. There are many, we won't get into it, but there are many instances, specifically in the Night's Watch, where they're talking about feeding the whole group, and I was left scratching my brain a lot of times. Anyway, we'll get to that in those chapters.
Okay.
Some number of months down the line from now.
Yeah, you could also credit him with giving those characters who are describing these instances a sense of exaggeration too. It could not be him, it could be the characters.
True. Oh, what a nice tool for an author to wield.
I know, right?
That wasn't my mistake. The character doesn't know. Brilliant. All right. Let's move on to Tyrion. Matt, you want to lay it down for us?
Yeah, let's do it. So Tyrion, in this chapter, it wants to see the wall before he goes back down to the south. He wants to see this famous wall up in the north. So he hitches a ride with Benjen's entourage. Benjen's going back up to continue his post with the Night's Watch. He's also taken along Jon, of course, who's one of the Night's Watch's newest recruits. On the way, they meet up with a Night's Watch recruiter named Yoren, whose whole job it is to go and find new recruits for the Watch. And this time he's found two boys who were convicted as being rapers. And so instead of, as George points out, castration, they chose to go to the wall. And so this motley little crew, fellowship, if you will, is heading up north, and it's very cold, and the north is very, very big, bigger than Tyrion had ever imagined. And we get some insight more into Tyrion and Jon. I wouldn't say not so much, well, a little bit of their personalities individually, but I think the real gems come from their interactions with each other, which is a lot of fun. We also get a little bit more history as to the dragons of Westeros. Well, dragons of this world, not just Westeros. And a little more insight into things like the wolves and some other things. This is more of a chapter that doesn't move the story along quite as much, and I think that might be kind of a theme for this week, is we got some chapters that were more informational in nature rather than really driving the story forward plot-wise. But I love those, and a lot of times those chapters are the ones that have the most gold to mine from them. But that's pretty much that chapter, is just them walking and talking. A very Lord of the Ringsy type chapter. Let's dive into it a little bit. Do you think... Oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to start with my size of the north thing, just
Yes,
to put
please.
things into perspective.
I loved that, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So people are always talking about how big the north is, and how cold it is too, but mainly just how expansive it is. One of the characters at some point in this group of chapters said that I think it was Robert, said that the north is as big as the rest of Westeros put together, and it's not, but it's close. So I just went and did some some just general measuring. This is not scientific necessarily, but I found it referenced that from top to bottom, including lands beyond the wall, Westeros is about 3,000 miles long. And so I just, did some crude measurements, and it looks like the north is somewhere between 900 and 1,100 miles north to south, from the wall down to the neck. If you suck in sus mapas, get out your maps, and take a look from the wall down to what the place called the neck. That's about anywhere from 900 to 1,100 miles in my estimation, and it's probably around 800 to 1,000 miles east to west, from his westernmost point to his easternmost point. So to put that into context really quickly, that's like for driving from LA to Portland, or from New York to Jacksonville, Florida, or for those Canadians, from Vancouver to Saskatoon. Brooke, does anyone ever go to Saskatoon?
As it so happens, I was born there.
What?
Yes, they do.
Blind luck!
Total blind luck.
That couldn't have gone more perfectly.
It's actually a beautiful city. You'd never believe it, but
I wouldn't.
It is.
I'll have to go there.
No, you don't have to,
Oh.
but it is nice.
All right.
It's certainly not a destination. But thank you very much for putting this into a perspective I can understand. You're talking about miles, and I kind of tuned out. But
Yeah.
Vancouver to Saskatoon, that is relatable. I got it.
And
She's like, Portland? I've never even heard of Portland.
What's Jacksonville? Actually, I don't know what Jackson is. That Florida?
yes, Jacksonville,
Yes.
Yeah,
Florida.
okay.
Yep.
Very good.
Okay.
So anyway, I just wanted to put that in context for people so they know how big a space we're really talking about.
Yeah, you kind of just get the idea that, that the king's entourage traveled for so long to get to Winterfell that you kind of think that the wall's just probably up the road.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not.
They still have quite the walk.
So anyway, you were about to jump into something, Matt. Go ahead.
I want to talk for a little bit about Tyrion and Jon's relationship. They've had two interactions that we've seen so far, and they're very interesting. They're very similar characters, and they're very different. Why do you guys think they work so well together? Or do they work well together?
So to me, Tyrion is going to be brutally honest to anybody. It doesn't matter who they are. Jon is kind of used to being able to just take it from people. You just got to take it. He's a bastard, just got to take it. And so Tyrion finds in Jon someone who can actually listen to what he's saying, will take it, and take it for what it's worth, instead of just being offended or, putting him off or, whatever, and use the information that he's giving him as something valuable. And I think too, he sees someone that might actually even look up to him a little bit. Jon sees that Tyrion has lived, a life of trial, one that Jon is living through as well, and is, kind of, I'd say, come out on top a little bit, right? He's in a good spot for who he is. And I think Tyrion sees that Jon is interested in asking him questions about what he thinks and what he knows of the world. And so I think Tyrion likes that. He doesn't have a whole lot of people that view him that way. So I think that's part of it, is just getting a benefit of someone that's interested in you.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, that is a lot more seductive reasoning for their relationship than I had, in just that Tyrion finds Jon interesting. And when he finds people interesting, I think he's willing to spend some of his cleverness on them. And that's what we're seeing here.
And Jon isn't clever, is he?
Well, he's
I don't mean
smart.
he's dumb. I don't mean he's dumb. I mean he's not witty. He's not clever.
There's a difference between intelligent and clever
Yes.
in some cases, and I would agree with you.
He's very literal, right?
Right now, he is.
Tyrion asks him specifically, "Look at me, Jon. What do you see?" And he says, "Are you kidding? I see Tyrion Lannister. Like, what are you getting at? Like, he's not, he's not looking for anything witty or clever. He's just like, he sees things in black and white, kind of as they are, right?
He is Eddard Stark's son and grew up with him, and so I think that's kind of his dad in him. There's a lot we could talk about, but we're starting to run short on time, and this Catelyn chapter coming up is a really good one. But maybe the one other point that I just wanted to touch on is I love probably one of the on a higher level, things that has captivated me most about this series is how George R. R. Martin weaves these real life type situations, things that you can apply and we apply on in these podcasts to modern day situations. He takes these very real situations and he weaves in freaking others and dragons and these fantastical elements that make the story even that much more cool. And I've never seen something like that, at least to this degree. And I love how we're getting into some dragon lore and learning a little bit more about those. It makes the Dany chapters more intriguing, learning about the role that dragons played.
So say we all! So say we all!
Somebody once described this series to me as the West Wing meets fantasy. Which is like it's all about politics and it's families instead of political parties or whatever, but the theme applies. It's all about politics and gaining the upper hand and all these machinations that are going on behind the scenes and everything. But then there's dragons too, and so it's just kind of cool to weave those worlds together, like you said, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Lots of good stuff in this chapter. Is there anything else you guys want to cover, or should we get on to Cat?
Yeah, I've done a poor job policing the time again. We should probably get on to Cat.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll try to bust through this summary here because there's lots of good stuff to talk about. So Catelyn is still being a super dud about Bran and hasn't left his bedside. Maester Luwin tries to distract her by taking some of the Winterfell business up to her, but she declares that she doesn't care who becomes the next horse master or whatever. She would gladly kill all the horses in Winterfell if it brought Bran back, which made me go, but I guess is an accurate representation of just how far she's sunk in her grief. Mm-hmm. So Robb comes in during this tirade and is like, guys, I got this. And Catelyn realizes that he's all grown up and ends up breaking down even further in front of him, admitting that she's afraid to sleep in case Bran dies, obviously suffering really badly from the ill effects of sleep deprivation. So while all this is happening, someone lights the library tower on fire across the campus of Winterfell, if you will. So Robb and all the guards outside of Bran's room go running, and that's when, bam, a smelly, scruffy-looking assassin shows up with a knife.
Who's scruffy looking?
Questioning why Catelyn is in the room at all, obviously there to kill Bran in his sleep. So the dude tries to take out Catelyn first. Again, not sure why she's there, but she has to go too. And she stops him from slitting her throat with her bare hands on the blade of the knife that he's using.
Hardcore!
So hardcore, man. Fortunately, Bran's wolf bursts into the room and eats the guy's throat out. So everyone comes running back up to discover Catelyn just losing it, laughing hysterically. Blood everywhere. Bran's wolf is all tucked up in bed with Bran. Catelyn, after losing it, ends up sleeping for 4 days. Loses the sleep deprivation crazy, kind of gets back to her old self and deduces that someone has to go to King's Landing to prove that the Lannisters are behind all these attempts on Bran's life, and also that person has to be her because she's going to be the most convincing. To get right into it, my favorite part was that Bran's wolf was never allowed to sleep with him in his room the whole entire time he's been sick. Somehow makes it up into the tower just in time to stop this assassin, then ends up licking all of the blood off of Catelyn's cut fingers before sleeping, hopping up on the bed and laying down to sleep beside Bran as if protecting him. Like, this wolf is actually communicating with Catelyn, telling her that, hey, I will take care of you and I will take care of Bran. It's okay to go sleep. Things are going to be okay. Which I love this wolf. Yeah.
Oh, Brooke.
that really
was
stuck
cool.
with me. I had a little,
I
had a little tear. So I love that George R. R. Martin gives so much personality, and also he makes the wolves characters in the book.
Yeah, it's interesting about the wolves because standard fantasy fare would tell you that these wolves are going to have some sort of superpowers or, super insight or some, something. And, we're 15 chapters into this book or whatever, and we haven't seen a lot special from the wolves. Like, they're cool. You're like, God, I wish I was a kid with a cool wolf, but they haven't done anything really special yet. And you're wondering whether, like, oh, maybe they're just gonna be pets, or is there something special about them or what? And this is the first inkling we get that maybe these things have something going on. This and the singing, right? They're singing in chorus together, and that kind of maybe means something special. But it's an exciting little nugget of maybe these wolves have something special.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So another.
go ahead.
Keep going.
No,
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
I was going to move on to something else. Go ahead.
I was going to say another interesting part in this chapter is how, again, the Lannisters come under suspicion for all these assassination attempts against Bran, and that Catelyn is so convinced that she would actually leave Bran, he's still completely unconscious, and go all the way down to King's Landing to prove it, to take this knife and find its owner.
It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're really stuck on it. Damn.
Yeah, I hated that decision. I thought she should have stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scad, do you think she should have stayed?
Well, I think someone should go. It seems like I guess I'll say first of all that it seems awfully convenient that they just kind of come to this conclusion, right? It's like, oh, it's the Lannisters. Like, I remembered he didn't go hunting, and so it's them. Like, wait, what? It seems like a bit of a jump. So I think that means somebody does have to go figure it out. But it also seems like a jump that it has to be her.
Well,
Like,
why Cat?
Yeah, there's no one else you can trust with this. Like,
Yeah.
you got a whole town full of people loyal to you that would raise much less suspicion than you going.
Why her?
It seems like a stretch.
They made all these good points about why Cat should stay earlier in the book.
Yeah.
And why does she have to go? And then she's also taken with her another one of Winterfell's greatest resources, which is Roderick Cassell,
Yeah.
who's a very influential figure in all of Winterfell and for the kids. So you're taking two of the most valuable people in Winterfell to essentially go be messengers. I didn't get it. I didn't like it.
This just struck me. Do you think she's doing it to get away from Bran because she knows she's incapacitated when she's around?
Possibly.
Or did she move past that with the dagger through the hand?
The dagger through the hand seemed to be a wake-up moment for her.
Yeah.
And we call it that, even though she went to sleep for 4 days after.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a defining moment, and maybe there was something to it that she suddenly realized what we were talking about earlier, that I got to get my head back in the game.
Yep.
But part of getting her head back in the game is just being a mom, too.
Yeah. Anything else on this chapter? I had one more thing.
Go for it.
Well, it's a quick writing thing. I don't know why, but I'm zoned in on this on some of these specific lines from George in this segment. But George has this way, and you'll see it throughout the series. He has this way of just completely turning a scene on its ear in a single sentence, and doing it in a way that, like, you have to read it again to know what you just read because it's so unexpected. And the line was, when she turned away from the window, the man was in the room with her. And it's like, boom, holy shit, what's going to happen now?
Mm-hmm.
We were just worried about a fire, and then now you're like, whoa. And it's just this casual one line, and you're like, wait, something just changed, right? And he does this throughout the series, and it's so makes my day when it happens. I love it.
They're like, what? Moments where you have to go back and read the sentence again like 3 times.
Yes.
To make sure you understood what happened.
Yes. And Matt, I just want to note one more thing. In Brooke's summary, she used the term scruffy looking, and if we can get a Han Solo soundbite integrated somehow, that would be super special.
Scruffy looking? Who's scruffy looking?
Yeah. So, and we're nerds.
Yeah.
Wear it like a badge, Scott. Wear it like a badge.
All right, so
Just to recap for next week, or for next episode, for those of you who are going to be dropping off now, just remember that for our next episode here in a couple weeks, we are going to be reading Sansa's first chapter, so our first introduction to Sansa's POV, Eddard's third, Bran's third, Catelyn's fourth, and John's third. So the next 5 chapters we'll be reading and talking about next time. The reading schedule is up on the Tumblr site, davosfingers.com, so you can find that there if you need to look and see also when that's going to be posted and everything.
thank you, Matt. Davos After Dark.
Davos After Dark.
Davos After Dark. What do you guys want to go through? I want to talk about Must Be a Stark in Winterfell, but there's a lot of good stuff in here. What do you guys want to talk about?
I'm cool with talking about that. I also, going back to we have to always bring up R plus L equals J in every Davos After Dark now. I would love to talk about the Promise Me Ned paragraph.
Yeah, what do you want to start with? Well, let's start with the Stark and Winterfell thing, because it might be just quick.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
So is this just a line? Is this just like a catchphrase, like a family catchphrase that's persisted throughout the years, kind of like as a good campaign slogan, like, remember, boys, you always need a Stark in Winterfell, so that no one ever tries to overthrow them? Or is this something, is it something more? Is it like some sort of mystical, magical tie-in to being of the first men? You know, what does it really mean? Because I'll remind you, there is no Stark in Winterfell right now. By right now, I mean
at this point
at the end of Dance Dragons.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
And there is technically no Winterfell. It burned.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But no, I hear what you're saying. I think it actually is a throwback to when the North was its own kingdom, and so there had to be a Stark king. I think that's how it's being fed to us. But if you're asking for like a more mystical tie between that bloodline and the health of the region, I could see it, because right now they are suffering and winter is here.
The North is bleeding, right? And it all correlates with there being no Stark in Winterfell.
Yeah.
So last week I brought up or maybe it was the first week, I don't remember. I brought up the history thing. It was like 8,000 years ago and people don't remember and things like that. But they still they wouldn't remember the others or whatever. But there's still this kind of thing in their brain that keeps them coming back to it, like, maybe they're there, maybe they're there, maybe they're there. And I wonder if this Stark and Winterfell thing is a similar thing. It's like, it's this easy to remember phrase that like has been programmed into generation after generation, so that it always happens in order to actually protect from something bad happening. And I want to think that there's some. I want to think, because I think it would be cool, that there is some sort of mystical tie to there being a genetic Stark in Winterfell and the others taking hold in the world.
That's and that got me thinking about like Bran the Builder, from back in the Age of Heroes, all those thousands of years ago. He was a Stark, and he was the one that built the wall that keeps the others at bay, and that's why they built the wall, was to keep the others at bay.
Yep.
And so it could go back to that. And of course we know that the wall apparently has mystical features to it as well. So yeah, there could definitely be some sort of correlation there.
Well, we can leave it at that.
Yeah,
just let it be known that I want there to be something special about that phrase. All right, you want to go into everyone's favorite topic, Jon's parentage? We assume it's not Willa.
Even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah, this is, and you guys, I don't know whose notes this belongs to, but the fact that Ned is so anxious to keep Jon's parentage secret from Robert is because if Robert knew he was a Targaryen, he'd want to kill Jon. I never thought of that. Yeah. Who thought of that?
I think it was in my notes.
It was in Matt's notes. Yeah, I'd read that online before.
It was Yeah, I was just thinking about it as I read it, how he talked, how Robert was comparing these little babies to dragons. And if he's willing to let a little 2-year-old girl and an infant die, or 3 years old, however old she was, he's not gonna even blink to kill a bastard preteen.
Yeah, especially
So,
in the moment.
yeah,
It's Lyanna's. That guy raped Lyanna and forced this being into the world. No,
yeah.
like
I just think George is just spoon feeding it to us at this point. It's seriously a 2-sentence paragraph. You avenged Lyanna at the Trident, Ned said, halting beside the king. In the very next sentence, promise me, Ned, she whispered. You're spoon feeding us, man. You're talking about him killing Rhaegar at the Trident, and then you bring up promise me, Ned. Yes, 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 yes.
yeah, yeah. It almost seems too obvious when you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not something I picked up when I read it, but it seems so obvious.
Yeah, going back, it's there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, George has no problem backtracking on us. Like, look at the deaths of, like, Brienne, Sandor, Jamie. In future books, they all die, air quotes again, and then miraculously come back. So if he's willing to, like, jerk us around to that degree with point of view character deaths, I think he's willing to backtrack on what he spoon fed us now, or pardon me, in the Game of Thrones as to what the ultimate ending of the book is going to be, or of the series.
Brooke, why are you counteracting your most loved point?
No, I'm not counting after. I'm fearful that it won't actually come true.
You're trying to not get your hopes up too much.
Here's the thing. Yeah, I believe that maybe at some point, including while he was writing, the first 9 chapters of the Game of Thrones in this epic series, that was George's intention. But he would have no problem changing it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if the folks at HBO ask him to.
Yeah.
Get started there.
Yeah, he needs to remove himself from like any association with the show. Honestly, like,
which he is starting to do. Yeah, he's not writing any episodes this next season, or he hasn't. Which is good. He always wrote at least 1 episode, and he didn't do that with this upcoming season. So I think he is starting to distance himself a little bit, and you can kind of read between the lines of some of his interviews and stuff. He's really starting to say, look, the books are the books, as he is in his accent, the books are the books, and the show is the show. And
yeah,
that's comforting. Okay,
I almost picked up a sense of frustration from him. Actually,
yeah, I think I read that same article you forwarded it to me, Matt, and I agreed. It seemed like he was saying, look, it's getting more and more difficult to come back to the path of the books with changes the show has taken. Right. And it sounded like frustration. But anyway.
And I'm to the point where I kind of see it, I think, the way they want us to see it, which is they're 2 stories being told in parallel, but aren't meant to be compared to each other. I thought he made a really good point at this last Comic-Con. He said, how many kids does so-and-so have in Gone with the Wind, the book? And it's like 3 or something like that. Well, how many does he have in the show? 6. And he goes, so which one's right? Neither, because both are works of fiction. And he was just kind of making light of the fact that these little things, the book is the book and the show is the show. Enjoy them both for what they are, and whatever.
And I can do that to an extent. I do that with The Walking Dead. I've read The Walking Dead from issue 1 to issue, I'm a few issues behind now, but issue 120, whatever it is that they're on. And I've watched every second of that show and devoured it season by season. And they're very, very different stories, different characters, same characters that do completely different things. And in that world, I'm fine with it. In this world, maybe I love it too much.
Yeah, you're attached. But, I think Brooke would agree with you. The only thing, for me to get by it. Yeah, the only thing that I cannot have is this show spoiling the ending for me before the books do. I will have to stop if that
Yes.
happens. I will have to stop if that happens. It's known that Martin has told the show creators the ending, how the series is supposed to end. They know, and it's a very realistic prospect at this point that the show is going to get there before the books do. Um,
God damn it.
and that's terrifying to me.
I'm just
I don't
glad. I'm just
even want to know that they know, because that's going to influence every decision, like script and shot decision they make.
Yep. Yeah.
well, and we've gone on this tangent, so I'll just keep going on it. But Matt and I talk a lot about, just kind of in side conversations at the office about the show and what happened in the last episode, because I'm a season behind on the show. But Matt because I just buy the DVDs when they come out and watch them at my own pace and everything. But Matt's devouring them as they come out on HBO. But he spoils them for me. He tells me everything that happened in the previous episode, and at
You
my
don't
urging,
stop me.
it's not like he's coming and shouting them in my ear, all the secrets. I can't wait to hear it, and he tells me. But he's told me some things that change that I'm just they mean certain things likely cannot happen in the books that are
Right.
still open questions in the books, and
Yep.
I'm tired of learning those things. And I told my wife, who is a fan of the show, I told her that we're probably gonna have to stop watching it, because
Yeah.
I don't think I even want to watch the season that just finished based on what Matt's told me.
It's good
She's
television.
not allowed to
and-
watch it either.
She's my property, Brooke.
Oh,
She's the Danny to
man.
Scott Strogo. Yeah, it's worrisome. It's good television, and I think they've done a good job with a lot of things. But for example, they've combined Gendry and Edric Storm's storyline, or so it appears.
Don't spoil things for Brooke.
Well, she was not
Oh,
gonna
don't
watch it,
worry,
are you,
no, I'm not
Brooke?
gonna watch it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
But
you know,
that might spoil something in the books for her.
The worst. Oh, why did he have to tell them? He didn't have to tell them.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Do you guys want to be done, or do you want to talk about quickly who the best wolf is?
Just if it was quick, I better be about done. Ghost for me.
Summer, because of the psychic connection.
Yeah. I think
Scott's favorite
Ghost.
is
I think
Lady.
Ghost has that same connection. John's just not ahead of the curve on realizing it.
Scott's favorite is Lady or Shaggy Dog.
Aw.
I think I do like Shaggy Dog, but I think Nymeria was my favorite. But she's so short lived.
I'm so
she's around
excited for
something,
them
man.
reuniting.
Yeah, she's around
Oh.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, when like because she keeps on being alluded to
Yes.
by like in no consistency by totally mutually exclusive sources that there is some wild pack of wolves roaming the Midlands led by a direwolf, and it's definitely Nymeria, and I
Yes.
can't wait for Arya to be the one to confront her in a field, and then
Mhm.
they
Well, she has the wolf dreams, right?
yeah.
So it is interesting though. We talked a little bit about in the episode about the about whether they're special or not, and I do think he hasn't done a lot about making them special. Lady bites it. Nymeria's gone missing, and maybe will come back and be special. Grey Wind's done. In some ways, they almost do seem like he's regressed and made them more just like big wolves.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I won't say that Grey Wolf didn't fulfill his meaningfulness in that, taking his head and putting it on Rob's body was like the most traumatizing thing for me ever.
Yeah.
Like throwing the book across the room, traumatizing.
Yeah.
But I would say that the wolves still have a lot of significance. They're still special. They're still magical. But him killing them off is just giving that much more significance to the demise of those characters.
Yeah.
It's making them. It's humanizing them. It's making them characters. Just like he kills characters or humans, he's gonna kill wolves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite thing Greywind did, just we'll wrap this up in a second. My favorite thing Greywind did is just a little side note that Catelyn makes about how Greywind doesn't trust the Rob's wife and their whole family. The Greywind doesn't like them, and so they lock Greywind up because he kind of gets in a tiff with Rob's wife's family, and it's just like, you need to trust your fucking wolf.
Yeah, she knows.
Like, he
After
knows.
Bran, yeah.
Like, the wolves know things. You need to trust their instincts. And if he says your wife sucks, your wife sucks. You know?
Stupid Jane. Oh, the worst.
So, all right, let's wrap it up.
Peace out, everyone. Peace and blessings.
Good nights. Good nights.